Once we have added documents into our collection and identified entities and relationships in the text, we can use the collections network to conduct linked chart analysis and interact with the data. To do this, we first need to navigate to the Network tab using the nav bar at the top. Once on the Network tab, you will see a list of networks to choose from. Just like on the Collections page, for each network we can configure security settings to prohibit specific user or security group access. We can also rename or delete a collection if necessary. Notice the folder icon for each network listing. This icon indicates that the network is linked to a collection. At the bottom of the screen, you will see a section to create a network, just like what we did on the project screen. Since we already have created a network for our collection, we can select it from the list. From the opened network, you will see a couple of panels. The first panel on the far left will list the entity and relationship types that have been identified in the document collection. Next to each entity and relationship type is a checkbox. This indicates whether the instances for that entity or relationship type are being displayed in our network table, located in the main panel of the screen. The network table or node table is the default view visible when the network is first opened. The table lists all nodes corresponding to the filtered entity or relationship type. A node is a representation of a network entity instance. The columns in the network table can be customized to display certain attributes for an entity or relationship instance, as well as include calculations or summarizations. A network table view can be exported into a TSV file or other delimited file. By default, the table will be configured to show the label for the entity instance, any tags associated with the instance, key terms that surround the instance, as well as the number of documents and references corresponding to the instance. Depending on the data type for the column, a search may be performed for a particular value. For example, a search for a certain entity instance based on the label. Additionally, sorting can be applied to a layer as well. For instance, if we wanted to know which instance of the person entity type appears in the most amount of documents, we could click on the docs column header to sort in either ascending or descending order. You will notice that every table view will begin with two columns, the first being a series of checkboxes and the second an actions column. In the actions column for each entity instance, you will see a series of buttons that allow us to add a given instance to the network graph or the timeline, view the documents where the instance is found, view and modify the details for the entity instance, as well as delete the node. By using the checkboxes, we can select multiple instances, allowing us to perform bulk actions. You will notice as we select more than one instance, buttons will populate in the header of the actions column, including an additional button that will allow us to merge the selected nodes into a singular entity instance. To add the two entities we have selected to the network graph, use the first button from the left at the top of the column, labeled Add to Network Graph. You will notice a notification appear under the Network Graph tab, stating that the two nodes have been added. We can go ahead and navigate to the Network Graph tab to see the newly added nodes. The Network Graph consists of a canvas where nodes will be added and link chart analysis can be conducted. On the left-hand side, you will notice various sections with different actions that can be performed in the Network Graph. These actions can adjust the layout, select, edit, add, and clear nodes, as well as enable the mapping features in text analytics. We will cover a few of these options that will allow us to easily navigate the nodes on our network graph. First, let's look at the nodes. Each node will feature the label for the entity instance. Some entries may have tiles surrounding them. These are tags associated with the instance. For example, with the person entity, by default, positions that the individual has are illustrated. You will see two numbers associated with each node as well. One located inside the circle outlined in red, and a second in a gray circle on the outside. The value outlined in red is the number of documents the node appears in, while the gray circle is the number of neighboring entities that can be expanded for. There are a few ways to expand on an entity. We can select the entity and utilize the Explore section on the left-hand side to show more neighbors. We can also right-click the entity where we can find many of the same options found in the sections on the left-hand side of the screen. However, we can also click on the gray circle. This will show us the available entity types and relationships we can expand on for the entity. We can also constrain how many to add at once. Once we select a type, the nodes will be immediately added to the graph along with linkages to existing nodes on the graph. After adding new nodes, it is helpful to use the layout features in text analytics to reposition our view. First, we can click Rearrange, which will reorganize the nodes in the view. We can also click Fit to View to assure that all nodes on the graph are included in the viewport. Linkages between nodes are color-coded based on the relationship type. To further inspect a linkage, click on one of the entities comprised in the relationship. All of the linkages for that entity will be highlighted on the graph. Each linkage will have a number representing the link strength, or the number of supporting documents for the relationship. By clicking on the link, we can see further details, including the role each entity plays. Additionally, we can click Show Documents to see the source of the relationship and understand the context behind it. From this document view, we can access the same features previously covered on the Collections page, such as the markup window and export options. For a given entity, we can also see the profile that has been built by right-clicking on the node and clicking the View or Edit Details option. This option can also be found under the Explore section on the left-hand side. To add a new entity to the graph from the Network table, we can navigate back to the Table tab. If we click the Add to Network Graph button for any entity instance, by default it will reset our network graph view. However, if we want to add it to our existing graph, we can hold Shift on our keyboard and then click the Add to Network Graph button. Additionally, on our network graph, if we want to select multiple nodes at once, we can hold Shift while selecting. We can also utilize the Selection section on the left-hand side of the viewport to select groups of nodes at once. We can clear nodes on the graph in groups as well as using the Clear section. Text Analytics also offers a mapping feature that can take any locational entity and plot it on the map while keeping the link chart visualization present. Any entity type can be assigned a geo-coordinate attribute. The location entity type, by default, will look up any identified instance in a geographical database to auto-assign coordinates. Let's first expand on our node for any neighboring location entity types. After adding some locational nodes to the graph, click the Show Map button found under the Map section on the left-hand side of the screen. You will notice all the nodes with coordinates have been plotted and can be identified by a down arrow. We can change the map layer using the Layer button in the top right corner. Link charts built into the system will automatically reset once the session ends. However, we can save a link chart view to restore at a later time using the Browse and Save button in the top left corner of the screen. Here we can save a new network graph view as well as restore any previously saved views. In our next video, we will discuss using the search function in Text Analytics to easily navigate documents ingested into the system.